Welcome to this session of Blender. In today's session, we are going to see the basic UI of Blender, where the whole UI is divided into various sections and each section is flexible to increase the size, decrease the size as per the user's convenience. Since Blender is completely open source, we have the complete freedom to do whatever kinds of operations we want to do on the screen. So nothing is fixed in the UI, everything is customizable when we work with Blender. So we are going to see the usage of different sections of Blender along with some small features which we can apply on the cube. So to start off with, the first part of your UI, of your Blender UI is your taskbar. Now the taskbar on top will help you to perform different kinds of operations. So we have file, we have edit, we have render, we have window, and we have help button to give us the manuals or tutorials whichever we need for Blender for the latest version. We are working with Blender version of 2.8.3.3. Now here if we see, we also have different kinds of options. These options help us to select the UI or the view in which we want to do some kinds of transformations or do some kind of operations. So what we have selected right now is called as the layout. I will just show you some of the views which are there, by which if you see the screen over here will have different kinds of view. Like for example, when I select on modeling, I will get a view of modeling where I will get different various other operations which were not visible in layout. That means when I have to perform modeling on my object, that means to give a different size, to duplicate that or do any kind of operations, I will select modeling. Similarly, when I have to do sculpting, like for example, to give a proper shape or give a proper kind of texture to my object, there you can see the operations have been changed over here. When I go for editing, editing will help me to select what kind of operations I want to perform on my object. Similarly, you have your animation. When I say animation, see, you can see the object over here, you can see the animated object over here. So I can select animation, I can go for rendering. Then I can go for composting and scripting. Similarly, you have different kinds of operations to perform. So we are working on the basic thing that is called as the layout. Now in layout, this is about your taskbar. Now we come to the viewport. This screen which you see at the center of your screen is called as your viewport. In viewport, we have three objects. One is the cube, one is the camera, and one is the light. Now when I select the cube is the object on which I want to perform some operation. Now what is the use of your light and camera? As you all know that we have seen movies. When movies are made, there is always light focus done on the object or the actor who is trying to perform. So that we make sure that however the person is looking, the focus should be on the person and the person should look good. So that is the reason of having your light. Similarly, when I say about camera, as we all know, whenever director directs a movie, the camera has to be given a clear kind of fixation of the view, so that whatever the director wants the scene to be there, the scene should have every kind of objects which it is expecting. Similarly, when I have my camera helps me to focus on my object so that my final animation will have everything what I'm expecting in the view to be. So that is the use of your camera and your light. Now object can be any object. Now here we have simply as cube. So as you have seen, we just have three things to work with. We have camera, we have cube, and then we have light. Now this is called as our viewport. Let's come to the next part. This part is called as the outliner. Now what is the task of outliner? Now if you see, as I have told you, in my viewport I have three objects. One is camera, one is cube, and one is light. Similarly, when I say about outliner outlines what kinds of objects do I have in my layout. Like for example, I have camera, I have cube, I have light. Now what is the use of this outliner? Now it may so happen that I have created one more object, but that object is hidden somewhere, which I have forgotten to perform the operation, or I have forgotten that that particular object has been added on my screen. Now for example, if I just render and animate my the whole operation which I have performed, but after animating I see that something is there in my screen which should not be visible. So in that case, to know what is the hidden objects I have which I have created and I have forgotten about it, that will help us our outliners for us to know. So now as we know that we just have 3 objects, we can add up more. Along with that, we can create different scenes also. So this is one part of collection. I can have 2 or 3 collections of different scenarios and then I can merge. So outliner helps me to give a complete picture about what kinds of objects and what kind of collections or scenes I have created in my UI. So this is about the outliner. Third part is called as the properties panel. Now what is the use of properties panel? Whatever I select in my viewport or in my scene over here, their properties will be exhibited over here. So for example, I have selected cube. Now for cube, I can do translation, I can do rotation, I can do scaling. So different operations I can see over here. Similarly, on my cube, if I want to give color, I can give color to my cube. If I want to give constraint, I can give constraint to my cube. That means whatever operations I have to perform on my cube will be specified over here. Now if you see, there are so many options for my cube. But when I come to light, my options reduces. For a reason that on my light, I cannot add color to my light. I can just give a focus point. Or I can give some kind of angle. I can rotate. But some operations are not performed on my light. Similarly, when I select camera, there are some operations which I need to perform on camera. Not all operations will be applicable. Similarly, whatever objects I select, their properties come over here and I can select and add different kinds of operations in my object. So that is about the properties. Now let us come to the next part, which is called as the time frame part. As you can see, I can customize my UI as I want. So here I can also reduce, I can increase, decrease, I can reduce here. So everything is customizable in Blender. That's what's the best part of Blender to work with. So we don't have any kind of fixed constraint that we cannot do something. So in this case, if we see, we have the timeline as well. So if you're performing any operations, we can insert the keyframes and we can start the operation in this case. So this is about the complete UI, where I have the taskbar, where I have the viewport, I have the outliner, I have the properties panel, I have the timeline. Now the most important part in the whole UI also is your status bar. Now what is the task of status bar? Status bar helps me to see what kind of operations I have performed, or what is the status currently going on. At the same time, what are the different kinds of operations later on I can perform. So status bar plays a very important role when I work with my Blender. So when I say about the complete Blender, this is the whole UI, what it looks like. Thank you.